In a small town nestled in the heart of the Midwest, there was a cozy little diner called Emma's Place. It was the kind of diner that looked like it had been around forever, with a vintage sign hanging proudly above the door, its once bright red letters now fading. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and inviting, with the smell of fresh coffee, homemade pies, and sizzling bacon filling the air. Emma Thompson, the owner, ran the diner with passion and love. But times had been tough. For the past few months, the restaurant had struggled to stay afloat. Business was slow, and the bills were stacking up. It had been one of those days where nothing seemed to go right. The rain poured relentlessly, casting a gloomy shadow over the town. Emma sat at her worn-out counter, staring at the stack of unpaid invoices in front of her. Her fingers trembled as she counted the money from the day's sales. It wasn't nearly enough to cover next month's rent. Emma had already made the tough decision to let go of her part-time help in order to save a few dollars. With her only daughter, Lily, to look after, Emma couldn't afford any mistakes. Just as she was about to close up early, the bell above the door jingled. A man walked in, drenched from the rain. He was older, with disheveled gray hair and a long, worn-out coat. His shoes were soaked, and his face looked tired and worn, as if he had been carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. His eyes, however, held a deep sadness, and Emma could tell he had been through hard times. She watched him slowly make his way to the counter and hesitate for a moment before sitting down at an empty booth in the corner. "Can I get you something?" Emma asked, her voice soft and kind. The man looked up at her, his eyes meeting hers for the first time. "Just a coffee, please, black," he said quietly, his voice hoarse. I haven't eaten in a few days." Emma nodded, her heart aching at his words. She could see the hunger in his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly. It reminded her of the times she had gone without food when she first started the diner, struggling to make ends meet. Despite her own financial troubles, Emma couldn't turn him away. She wasn't that kind of person. "Don't worry about the bill," she said, smiling warmly. "I'll make you something to eat." The man seemed hesitant at first, but after a moment, he nodded gratefully. "Thank you, I don't have much, but thank you." As she walked to the kitchen to prepare a warm meal, Emma couldn't help but think about her own struggles. She knew what it felt like to be on the edge of losing everything. She had come a long way since the days when she had nothing but hope and a dream of running her own restaurant. Now, though, those dreams were starting to fade, just like the fading letters on her diner's sign. In the kitchen, Emma worked quickly, chopping vegetables and stirring a pot of soup. She made sure to use her grandmother's secret recipe, one that always had a way of warming the soul. The smell of the soup filled the air, comforting her in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. As she worked, her thoughts wandered to her daughter, Lily, who was just finishing up her last year of high school. Emma wanted so badly to give her a better life, to give her everything she needed, but it was becoming increasingly hard to keep up. When the meal was ready, Emma brought it to the man's table. She set down a steaming bowl of soup, with a side of freshly baked bread and a slice of homemade pie. The man looked up at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. He took a deep breath, inhaling the warmth and the scent of the food. "Thank you, this is more than I've had in a long time," he said softly, taking his first spoonful. Emma smiled, but she couldn't help but notice the tears that welled up in his eyes as he ate. He seemed to be lost in the flavors of the soup, and for a moment, it felt like the world outside had disappeared. She sat down across from him, offering him the company that he clearly needed. "My name's Henry," the man said after a few minutes, breaking the silence. "I used to be an accountant before. Things went downhill. Lost my job, and then my wife passed away last year. I've been struggling ever since." Emma listened quietly, nodding sympathetically. She could feel the weight of his words, the pain in his voice. Her heart went out to him, as she had faced her own share of heartache. She shared a little of her own story as well, how she had started the diner with nothing but a dream and how, Despite everything, she was still holding on. She told him about her daughter, about her hopes for the future. As Henry ate, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of kinship with him. She understood his struggle, his sense of loss. She knew what it felt like to be at rock bottom, wondering if things would ever get better. Yet, despite it all, she hadn't given up, and neither had he. There was something about his quiet resilience that made Emma feel less alone. When Henry finished his meal, he smiled at her, his face looking more relaxed, more at peace than when he had first entered the diner. "Thank you again," he said, reaching into his coat pocket. "I don't have much, but I want you to have this." He pulled out a small business card and a folded note. Emma's curiosity piqued, but before she could ask, Henry stood up. "Keep the rest of the food. I don't want you to think I'm taking advantage," he said, his voice warm but tired. Emma tried to stop him. "You don't need to leave anything. You're welcome here anytime." But Henry just smiled, his eyes twinkling with something Emma couldn't quite place. With a final glance, he walked out into the rain, leaving Emma standing there, holding the card and the note in her hands. She sat down, her heart racing as she unfolded the paper. What she found on the card and in the note would change her life in ways she never could have imagined. Emma sat at the counter, the card and folded note still in her hands. Her heart raced as she unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning the neat handwriting. The words on the page seemed too surreal to believe. The card was from a company called Stanton Investments, a well-known financial firm in the city. The note, written in careful script, read, "I've been watching your diner for the past few weeks. I've seen how you treat each customer like family. And I've noticed the quality of your food. There's something special about Emma's Place. Something that's hard to find in the business world today. I believe you have the kind of heart and dedication that makes a business truly successful. I'm in a position to help you grow your diner, and I'd like to discuss some possibilities with you. I will be in touch soon. Henry Stanton." Emma blinked, her mind struggling to process what she was reading. Henry Stanton, the same man who had come in from the rain, barely able to hold his tears together as he ate his meal. She stared at the card in disbelief, unable to wrap her head around the connection between the kind stranger who had walked into her diner and the wealthy businessman whose name was printed neatly on the card. She took a deep breath and reread the note, her mind racing. Could this really be happening? Was this some kind of mistake or a cruel joke? Her diner was just a small, struggling business in a town where most people had never even heard of it. How could someone like Henry Stanton possibly be interested in helping her? She glanced at the clock on the wall. It was getting late, and the diner was empty. She sighed, thinking about all the things that seemed to be going wrong lately. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the note and card on the counter. She couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was unfolding. But what if this was just another pipe dream? She had spent so many years hoping for a break, for some kind of miracle to save her. The note was a reminder of her longing for something more, something that could change her life. Yet, doubt crept in. What if Henry never really intended to help? What if this was just a friendly gesture that meant nothing more than that? Her thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of the diner's phone. Emma jumped, startled by the sound. She hadn't expected anyone to call this late. Hesitantly, she picked up the receiver. "Hello, is this Emma Thompson?" a voice on the other end asked. Smooth and confident. "Yes, this is she," Emma replied, her voice shaky, still unsure of what was happening. "This is Henry Stanton. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." The man's voice continued, calm and reassuring. "I wanted to follow up on the note I left you. I've been thinking about our conversation, and I believe there's a lot of potential for your diner. Would you be interested in discussing a partnership with my investors?" Emma's breath caught in her throat. It was really him, Henry Stanton, the man who had sat at her counter and shared a quiet meal with her just hours ago. Now, he was calling her about a potential partnership. She felt a mixture of excitement and disbelief flood through her. I don't know what to say," Emma stammered, her mind still reeling from the unexpected turn of events. Are you sure you're talking about my diner? I don't have anything big. I'm just a small town diner trying to stay afloat. I'm sure, Henry responded. What you've built here is more than just a business. It's a place where people feel welcome, where they know they're cared for. That kind of dedication and heart is something you don't find every day. I've seen the way you treat your customers, and that's why I'm interested. I think we could do something really special together. Emma's heart raced as she listened to his words. She couldn't believe it. She had spent years working tirelessly to make Emma's place a welcoming spot for the locals, pouring her heart into every meal, every detail, but she had never imagined it would catch the attention of someone like Henry Stanton. Someone with the means to turn her little diner into something far greater. I'm honored, Emma finally managed to say. But I have to be honest with you. I've been struggling. I'm barely keeping up with the bills. And I can't afford to take big risks. I'm not sure what kind of partnership you're proposing. Henry's voice was warm and understanding. I completely understand your hesitation. That's why I want to come meet you in person. Let's sit down and talk about your vision for the diner and how we might be able to work together. There's no pressure, just a conversation. If you're not interested, I'll respect your decision. Emma paused, the weight of his words sinking in. She knew this could be her chance, the opportunity she had been waiting for. But it also felt risky, like stepping into the unknown. Could she trust him? Could she take the leap? I think that sounds good, Emma replied, trying to steady her voice. When would be a good time for you to come by? I'll be in town tomorrow afternoon, Henry said. How about we meet around 2 p.m.? Okay, I'll be here, Emma said, her heart pounding. She knew this was a turning point, but she also knew she had to be careful. The conversation ended, and Emma sat back in her chair, still holding the phone in her hand. The reality of the situation was slowly sinking in. Tomorrow, Henry Stanton would be sitting across from her, discussing a potential partnership. The thought made her stomach flutter with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She glanced at the clock again. It was getting late, and the rain outside had finally stopped. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. Could this really be her chance to turn things around? She looked at the diner one last time before heading to the kitchen to clean up for the night. As she wiped down the counter, she couldn't help but wonder, what would tomorrow bring? The next day, Emma woke up early, a restless energy buzzing through her veins. She had barely slept the night before, her mind racing with thoughts of what Henry Stanton's visit might mean for her diner. As she brewed her morning coffee, she could hardly focus on anything else. The usual routine felt different today, each sound, each moment seemed to carry more weight. By the time the clock struck 1:30 p.m., Emma had already prepared the diner for Henry's visit. She double-checked the tables, ensuring everything was spotless, and arranged fresh flowers in a small vase by the window. The smell of fresh bread wafted through the air as she prepared her special homemade soup, just in case Henry wanted to taste her best dish. She knew that today could be the turning point she had long dreamed about. But she also knew she had to be cautious. She didn't want to get her hopes up too much. As the minutes ticked by, Emma couldn't help but glance out the window every now and then, waiting for the familiar sight of a car pulling into the parking lot. She wasn't sure what to expect from this meeting. Henry seemed kind, but was he truly sincere? Could she trust him, or was this just another false hope? A fleeting opportunity that would slip through her fingers? Then, right on time, at 2 p.m., a sleek black car pulled up in front of the diner. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She watched as the door opened, and Henry Stanton stepped out, looking entirely different from the man who had walked in the previous night. His clothes were no longer soaked and worn. Instead, he wore a crisp, well-tailored suit, a sharp contrast to his humble appearance just a few hours ago. His confidence was palpable as he walked toward the door, and Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. She quickly straightened her apron and walked to the door to greet him. "Mr. Stanton, welcome," Emma said, offering him a smile, her nerves barely hidden. Henry returned her smile with a warm, genuine look. It's good to see you again, Emma. Thank you for meeting with me today. His eyes scanned the diner as he stepped inside. This place has such a cozy, welcoming vibe. You've done a great job. Emma felt a blush creep up her neck. Thank you. I've worked hard to make it feel like home for the people who come in. It's always been more than just a business to me. Henry nodded, his eyes softening. I can tell. That's actually one of the things that drew me to your diner. There's a certain charm here. Something authentic. It's rare to find that in today's fast-paced world. And I think it's worth holding on to. Emma gestured toward a booth in the corner of the diner, where they could sit and talk in private. Please, have a seat. I've got some fresh coffee brewing. And I can bring you something to eat if you're hungry. Henry smiled again, sitting down at the booth. I'd love some coffee, thank you. Emma quickly moved to the counter and poured him a cup, adding a splash of cream. She set it down in front of him, then sat down across from him, her heart still pounding. She had no idea where to start or what to say, but she was determined to stay composed. So, Henry began, breaking the silence. I've been thinking about your diner all night. It's clear to me that you're passionate about what you do. You've built something truly special here, and I want to help you grow it into something even bigger. I've spoken with a few of my investors, and we all agree that this place has a lot of potential. Emma listened intently, her mind still trying to catch up with his words. You want to invest in my diner? She asked cautiously. Henry nodded. Yes, exactly, but I want to make one thing clear. This isn't just about money. It's about the vision I see here. I think you've created something that could become a staple in the community. Maybe even in the region. With the right support, this could grow into something much larger. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had dreamed about this moment for years. But hearing it out loud felt surreal. Her diner, the little place she had poured her heart into, could actually become something bigger. It sounded too good to be true. How would this work? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. What do you mean by support? Well, Henry explained, we'd start by expanding the space. Maybe adding more seating. We could also help you streamline operations and bring in a few more staff members so you don't have to do everything yourself. But the most important thing is that we'd keep the heart of this place the same. Your recipes, your way of doing things. That's what makes Emma's place unique. We just want to give you the resources to take it to the next level. Emma sat back, processing his words. The idea of expanding the diner, bringing in more staff, and improving the operations was thrilling. But there was a part of her that felt uncertain. She had always run the diner herself. Without outside help, could she really trust someone else to come in and make changes? Would it still feel like hers? What about the menu? Emma asked cautiously. Would you want me to change it? Add new things? Or, no changes there. Henry reassured her quickly. Your food is what makes this place special. The chicken soup, the pies, the fresh bread, these are the things that people love. And that's what I want to keep. We're not here to change your vision. We just want to help you reach more people and give you the support you need to keep doing what you love. Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. Henry's words reassured her that he wasn't here to take away the soul of the diner. Instead, he seemed to genuinely want to help her build on what she had already created. But what's the catch? Emma asked, her skepticism returning. You're offering all this support. Why would you do that for me? Henry leaned forward, his gaze serious but kind. Because I believe in what you're doing, Emma. I see the potential in this place. But more than that, I see the kind of person you are. You care about your customers. And you treat everyone with respect. That's something I value. You're not just trying to make money, you're trying to make a difference. And that's why I want to help. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. To hear someone, especially someone with Henry's connections, recognize the value of her hard work and dedication meant more than she could express. She had never felt more seen, more understood. As the conversation continued, Emma found herself growing more and more comfortable with the idea of working with Henry. His plan seemed thoughtful and genuine. She wasn't sure if she was ready to make a decision just yet. But she knew one thing for certain: her dream was within reach. And for the first time in a long while, it felt like it could actually come true. Over the next few days, Emma found herself replaying her meeting with Henry over and over in her mind. Every detail, every word, seemed to linger in the air, as if she could still hear the quiet assurance in his voice. His offer had been tempting, and for the first time in years, Emma allowed herself to imagine a future where Emma's place wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. But despite the excitement, doubts still gnawed at her. She had worked so hard to get where she was. She had started this diner from scratch, with nothing but a dream and the hope of offering a warm, welcoming place for people to gather. Could she really hand over some of that control to someone else? Even if Henry had promised to respect her vision, what if it all changed once the money came into play? Emma sat at her kitchen table that evening, the familiar quiet of the diner surrounding her. The day had been slow, and the only sounds in the building were the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional clink of a dish as she wiped down the counter. Lily had gone to bed early that night, and Emma found herself with a moment to think, to reflect. She picked up the note Henry had left her and reread it for what felt like the 100th time. The words were the same, but they seemed to take on new meaning each time she read them. I've been watching your diner for weeks. I've noticed your dedication to quality food. I've been looking for someone exactly like you, someone with both skill and heart. She sighed, her fingers tracing the edges of the paper. What if this was her chance? What if she was standing on the precipice of something that could change everything? But then, a nagging thought surfaced, the thought of her father. Emma had always been close to her father, who had passed away a few years ago. He had taught her everything she knew about hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance. He'd always told her that the key to success was staying true to yourself, no matter the obstacles. She had lived by those words all her life. I can't let go of that, she whispered to herself, as if speaking the words out loud would help her understand. Her father had believed in her, and she had worked so hard to build Emma's place into a place that was truly hers. Could she trust someone like Henry with all of that? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the diner's doorbell ringing. Emma looked up, startled. She hadn't expected anyone this late. When she saw the figure in the doorway, she froze. It was Robert, the old man who had come in that rainy evening. He stood there, a familiar tiredness in his eyes, his clothes still weathered and worn. He was holding a small paper bag in his hands. Emma's heart skipped a beat. What was he doing here? Hello, Emma, Robert said softly, his voice gentle. I hope I'm not disturbing you. I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. Emma stood up quickly, her surprise giving way to concern. Robert, what are you doing here? Are you okay? You didn't need to come all the way back here. Robert smiled faintly, his eyes twinkling despite the exhaustion in his face. I didn't have much to offer when I came in last time. But I've been thinking a lot about what you've been going through. You've been kind to me, and I wanted to return the favor. He walked over to the counter and set the small bag down. I wanted to give you this, he said, his voice steady. It's not much, but I thought it might help. Emma looked down at the bag, confused but grateful. She opened it slowly and found a small stack of old business cards, some of them stained with age. There was also a neatly folded piece of paper. Robert watched her closely as she unfolded it. On the paper was a note, written in the same neat handwriting she had seen before. The same handwriting from the letter Henry had left her. Emma, I wanted to make sure you knew that I wasn't just some random man off the street. I have been watching your diner, as I mentioned before, but I didn't want to come off as pushy or intrusive. I knew that if I just showed up, it wouldn't make a difference. But after everything we talked about, I felt it was time to let you know who I really am. Emma's heart raced. She looked at Robert, her eyes wide with realization. Wait, You're Henry Stanton. The Henry Stanton? Robert nodded slowly. Yes, I am, but I didn't want to approach you as a businessman first. I wanted you to know who I really was. Without the title or the company. I've been through my own struggles. And I can see that you're just as dedicated as I am to making something good out of a hard situation. Emma stared at him, speechless. The truth had been sitting right in front of her all along. But she hadn't seen it. The kindness in his eyes. The way he had spoken to her with such compassion. It all made sense now. I didn't know how to tell you, Robert continued, his voice soft. But after the dinner we shared, I felt like I owed it to you to make sure you had all the information. You've worked so hard, and I think you deserve the chance to take this diner to the next level. But I want you to know that no matter what, I'm not just offering you a business deal, I'm offering you the opportunity to share your dream with the world. Emma felt a surge of emotion. She had spent so many nights wondering if anyone could see the potential in her work. In her dream, and now, here it was, the chance to take the diner beyond what she had ever imagined. But even with the overwhelming offer laid out before her, Emma knew this decision wasn't just about the diner, it was about trust. About risking everything she had worked for, and putting her faith in someone who had already shown her that kindness was the foundation of any real business. After a long pause, Emma finally spoke, her voice quiet but steady. I don't know if I'm ready for this kind of change, she admitted, but I've worked so hard to build this place. And I think it's time to let go of some of the fear and take a chance. Robert smiled. That's all I'm asking for. A chance. A leap of faith. Emma took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity wash over her. The decision had been made. Not with certainty, but with trust. She wasn't alone anymore, and with that, Emma knew that whatever came next, she was ready to face it head on. The following weeks passed by in a blur. Emma had made the decision. She had taken the leap of faith. After Robert's revelation that he was Henry Stanton, and after their heart-to-heart conversation, she had agreed to meet with Henry and his investors to discuss the future of Emma's place. It felt surreal at times, as though she were dreaming. Every day, Emma woke up with a mix of excitement and anxiety, unsure of what the next steps would bring, but certain that she couldn't turn back now. Emma and Henry met a few more times in the following days. They talked about the vision for the diner, discussed practical changes that could be made, and how to keep the essence of Emma's place intact. Henry and his investors were clear. They didn't want to strip the diner of what made it special. Instead, they wanted to help Emma expand, to make her diner a staple in the community, and eventually, to open multiple locations. Emma felt like she was on the edge of something big, but it wasn't without hesitation. Could she really scale something so personal, so small, into a business that was bigger than her small town? The day Henry's investors finally arrived was one Emma would never forget. The morning was crisp, and the sun peeked through the windows of the diner, casting a warm glow over the familiar checkered floors and vintage decor. Emma had spent hours preparing. The menu was set, her grandmother's chicken soup, freshly baked bread, and a few of her signature pies. She wanted to serve them the best of what Emma's place had to offer. At exactly noon, the bell above the door rang, and a group of well-dressed men and women walked in, looking every bit the part of successful investors. Henry was with them, looking polished in his suit, but with the same warm eyes that had first welcomed her. As the group entered, Emma stood by the counter, waiting to greet them. "Welcome to Emma's place," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves buzzing in her stomach. "It's a pleasure to have you here today." Henry smiled at her, his usual calm presence reassuring. "Emma, this is George, Lisa, and Sarah," he said, introducing his investors. "They've all been following the success of your diner, and we're here today to see how we can help bring your vision to life." The investors greeted her with nods and smiles. Taking their seats at different tables around the diner, Emma moved quickly to prepare their orders, the familiar rhythm of the diner calming her nerves. As she set down each plate of food, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This was her legacy, The food she made from scratch, with love and care, was the heart of this place. As the investors tasted her dishes, Emma watched them closely. She knew that this meal was more than just food. It was a reflection of everything she had poured into this diner. She noticed George nodding approvingly as he tasted the chicken soup. Lisa took a bite of the homemade bread and closed her eyes in appreciation. Sarah smiled as she tried a slice of pie, the kind of smile that told Emma everything she needed to know. "This is incredible," Lisa said, setting down her fork. "It's clear you've put your heart into this." George added, "I can see why Henry brought us here. There's something real about this place. Something that can't be manufactured." Henry smiled at Emma, his eyes full of pride. "I've told you all along that your diner has potential. Emma, it's not just about the food, it's about the atmosphere. The way you make people feel welcome. That's why we want to invest in you." Emma's heart swelled with emotion, hearing it from them, from people who had the means to make her dreams a reality. Made it all feel possible. She could see it now, the future she had always imagined. She wasn't just feeding people, she was creating something that could touch lives in ways she hadn't even dreamed of before. After they finished the meal, the group sat down to discuss the details. There was talk of expanding the diner's footprint, of bringing in a few new staff members to help with the load, and of using the extra capital to improve marketing efforts. But through it all, Henry assured Emma that the spirit of Emma's place would remain intact. Her recipes, her commitment to quality, and her unwavering belief in providing a home for people, it would all stay the same. They just wanted to help her reach more people. Emma felt a sense of calm settle over her. The plan felt right. It felt like the next step in the journey, the one she had been waiting for. But it wasn't just about the money or the business, it was about trust. Henry and his investors weren't just giving her the means to grow, they were respecting her vision, her integrity. They were honoring what she had built, and together, they would make it even better. A few weeks later, the first major changes began. They expanded the diner into the space next door, increasing the seating capacity. They hired a few more staff members, which allowed Emma to focus more on the creative aspects of the diner rather than the day-to-day grind. The kitchen got a small upgrade, and the decor was freshened up while maintaining the vintage charm that had always made Emma's place feel like home. As the changes took shape, Emma saw the first signs of success. More people were coming in, and the word was spreading. The community began to embrace the changes. Thrilled that their beloved diner was growing and thriving, Emma couldn't help but smile when she saw regulars from the neighborhood sitting side by side with newcomers, all enjoying the food and the warmth that had always defined Emma's place. But even with all the new opportunities, Emma stayed grounded. She remained involved in every aspect of the diner, from cooking to customer service, and she made sure her staff felt the same sense of purpose and commitment that she did. She trained every cook personally, teaching them her grandmother's recipes and emphasizing that the most important part of the job was making every customer feel like family. A year passed, and Emma's place had not only survived, it had flourished. With Henry's guidance and the support of his investors, the diner had expanded into 3 new locations, each one maintaining the same atmosphere, the same commitment to quality, and the same dedication to family. Emma was finally able to provide a better life for her daughter, Lily, and she even moved into a larger home, one closer to the school. Lily was proud of her mother, and Emma was proud of herself for having taken the leap. One quiet evening, as Emma prepared a fresh batch of her grandmother's chicken soup, she glanced up at the framed note from Robert, the one he had left that rainy night. She smiled, remembering how it all started with a simple act of kindness, a meal shared between 2 strangers. That night had changed her life, and now, she had the opportunity to change the lives of so many others. Your kindness that rainy night wasn't just about the food, Robert had once told her. It was about dignity, about treating people with respect. That's what makes you special. That's what makes your restaurant successful. Emma smiled again, the words echoing in her heart. She had learned that kindness could indeed change the world. And in her own way, she had built something that would last, a legacy of love, warmth, and compassion. And as she served the next plate of soup, she realized that, just like her grandmother's recipe, the secret ingredient was always love.